going to tell you a little bit about my journey that I've had and why I have decided to join APERIO and why I think it's important to me and to all of you as well. I hope you can hear me okay. All right, so as you can do the math, I've been doing this for almost 35 years. And I started out as a summer job doing instrument electrical AutoCAD, but I was fascinated by it. And I soon finished my education, became a control engineer, worked on advanced process control algorithms, and worked to make the operator's life better. What can we do to make it better? But I spent that first decade mining data. What of this data is good? What is bad? What can I use? How do I do a root cause analysis if my transmitters are bad? How do I help the operators run their control schemes and perform better? So that led me to a few different opportunities. I ended up being head of automation for Bayer Material Science, became a plant manager, so I had an entire production train with operations, maintenance, and engineering. And then ended up with an opportunity in Germany as the senior vice president of our global process control technology. And they gave me the edict, the board did, said, Jane, we want you to implement Industry 4.0. And we all kind of nodded like we knew what that was. And we had to figure it out. And but my team had looked at a lot of different solutions. And the way I approached the problem was, the 20 years prior, and then working with all the end users, what are your gaps in technology? Where is it that you need to implement something and do something to help make your job easier, which means that the plant's going to run longer, you're going to have more throughput and on-time, on-spec product. So I did, after the pandemic, make a little change in my career and joined Stanley Black & Decker. I was curious as to what all I learned in chemicals, how that would apply in discrete. And actually, you have the same kind of problems with technology adoption and human engagement and all those kind of things. So it was really very interesting for me. And that they were a little bit further behind. They didn't have much data for us to do anything interesting with. So going forward, data excellence, it's always been one of my passions. I was able to argue with data. I think it was Casper yesterday who said that there's less fights if you're all looking at the same data through Connect, because it's all connected. Everyone's looking at the same thing. There's no question about that. And that's how I won all my arguments, was with data. And I joined the World Economic Forum for 3 years, so between Covestro and Stanley Black & Decker. And working on data excellence, I represented chemicals, but there were people from across all the different industry verticals, all talking about the same problem: data quality, connectivity, sharing the data. And it was really quite interesting to me. And when I look back on my career and look at the data quality when manufacturing of products, which is why we're all here, all those problems that you have with a single source of truth for data, all of the loop tuning and the control schemes and asset health monitoring, unit quality, everything that you're doing within chemicals or within industry has to do with data. And so my goal was always to have the right data available at the right time so people made better informed decisions. And with Covestro, we achieved that goal. So I'm not going to go into any of this, but the Industry 4.0 design principles, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with it. Of course, I had to learn it from zero. But the point is that any problem can be solved with data. With the hyperconnectivity that you get with Industry 4 technologies and actually engaging the people properly, you can make a lot of advances faster. So I want to give a couple of just examples from my own personal experience on potential value of implementing technology within manufacturing. And if we look over at I'm afraid I'll break it. So if we look over at the industry, that's actually from the World Economic Forum and the way that they polled all of their members and how they're addressing problems. And as they're doing that digitalization, what kind of achievements did they have? So it was mentioned yesterday that only 30% of digital transformation is successful. And you've got to have the people in place to do that. You've got to have a strategy and a plan. And depending on your starting point is going to dictate how much you can actually value that you achieve. So this includes across verticals, so increasing your OEE by 50%, that seems pretty drastic. But when you look at discrete manufacturing and changeover and things like that, that's what you're dealing with. So I had two different examples here. The one in the middle is with Stanley Black & Decker, and they didn't have much data. So we had to start from industry 3. How do we start using the data? And we used a no-code, low-code platform and started connecting machines to data and started using that. Within the first year of utilizing data, we had $10 million in productivity improvements, and we were able to start scaling that, and they're at 50 plants so far and approaching that 100 million threshold that I promised the board. But that was only in a year's time. So it was really significant of utilizing data, turning your manual processes into something that's digitized, the benefit you get. At chemicals, so this is my Covestro example. So we had really outstanding 3.0 installations. Everything was computer controlled, a lot of automation. When the board said implement Industry 4, it's like, well, what does that mean? So what my team did is we looked at a year that we were in sold out conditions, and we could not meet customer demand because we had so many unplanned outages. So we did a detailed root cause analysis of all of those issues for that year, and we traced back to 120 million euro EBITDA loss because we couldn't make and sell the product. And so we looked at all the root cause analysis, and many of those went back to, well, the operator didn't believe the data, so didn't respond to it. Or the operator believed the data and missed that the valve was in a different position than it should have been, and therefore had a problem. So, and these small things could lead to a catastrophic event, so you're down for a month or longer, because it's not like you've got a fin fan in your warehouse that's ready to be installed. And we addressed those issues, promised it to the board. I still mentor my protege. I've been gone there for 3 years now. We still meet each month, and he said that the users are responding to the data. It's all built on top of Pi Vision, Asset Framework, the analytics with AVEVA, and we're also using Seek. And APERIO is part of that tech stack where they're looking at, so you have an asset framework, say heat exchanger, all your instruments on that particular heat exchanger, you can see the KPIs changing for heat transfer, but how do your transmitters actually look? Is there noise on it, or is there data gap? Is your KPI real? And that's how we're using that to help, so we don't take an unexpected shutdown to fix a problem that's probably just a transmitter issue. So in this last slide that I wanted to touch on, this is a Statista slide, but this represents the blue and the white, the confidence interval for 2030 IoT devices in the different categories. So the one all the way to the far end has to do with factories. And as Jonas mentioned, we're installing more and more and more IoT devices, and we need to be able to handle that data quality, because it's not going to be like buying one of those Schneider Electric transmitters or Emerson transmitters where they've put decades of research into it and you have a robust system. It's going to be cheap, easy to install, maybe using low power WAN to communicate or whatever, but we need a way to address all of that new data at scale so our end users can focus on the right things.